I feel like it's really hard to predict the champion of any tennis tournament now, such as Grand Slams, and let alone Indian Wells in Miami, where every year I feel like there's someone that unexpected that pops up. So last year that was Danielle Collins with her Miami title. And this year we could say for Indian Wells it was Jack Draper, and maybe someone would even include Mira Andreeva in there. Welcome tennis fans to Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host Ivy Zhang. And in today's episode, I will spend the first part talking about Indian Wells and spend the rest of the episode talking about the Miami Open. So let's get right into today's episode. I want to start off by talking about Indian Wells and the two finals that took place because I don't think I mentioned them. So for the women's final, we had Sabalenka versus Mira Andreeva, and I thought this was going to be really cut and dry for Sabalenka because she always had a winning head-to-head record against Andreeva, and she completely destroyed her at Australia. I mean, granted, this is a completely different Andreeva who added so much part to her game, and she's also sort of better at coping with the power of other players, and Sabalenka is known for her just really, really great strength and power ball striking, and I think Andreeva played a lot of players like that, and she also trained to just absorb their power and deflect their power. And I think that's exactly what she did, even though she lost the first set. And I thought, okay, this will just be the match I predicted it to be. But she found her footing later on. And I was truly amazed at how she was able to run to every single ball. And I really feel like she is a whole package, maybe except for her serve. Well, maybe except for her second serve, which I feel like is still a significant weakness. Everything apart from that is a whole package. I think her first serve is great. She's not only is her first serve really fast, she also served it in with like a really good first serve percentage. Her forehand, amazing. Her backhand, like on a whole nother level. I really do love her backhand, and her volleys are great as well. I think a lot of players like Coco Gauff, Sabalenka, and now Mira Andreeva, they play double because they want to improve their net skills, and I think that's really important because I feel like nowadays especially it's really hard to just win points by just standing at the baseline and blasting winners because players are all moving so quick now, and it's just really hard. I feel like an example of that would, let's just say, Naomi Osaka. Sometimes when the ball is short, I really want her to move up and just finish the point, but she really doesn't have that great of just a volley skill, so she has to go back and just grind it out, and that sort of sometimes reset the point. But for players like Sabalenka, Gauff, and Andreeva who play doubles, they know how to finish a point, they know how to play a volley and set up their points for a volley, and I think that really helped them in their single career as well. So yeah, I just love Andreeva. I think she's such a whole package, and I love that she just speaks whatever she wants. She speaks what's on her mind. So yeah. Okay, now I want to talk about the men's final, which was between Rune and Draper. But I really don't want to talk about this main match. I want to talk about Carlos Alcaraz versus Jack Draper, which was the semifinal, because I think there's more to talk about. For the final, I feel like Holger Rune just completely underperformed, and it was kind of underwhelming. I think for the semifinal between Carlos and Jack, I really don't know what happened. Carlos talked about how he was really, really nervous before going in, but like, guys, he's Carlos Alcaraz, but however, that was one of, I guess, the worst matches I've ever watched from Carlos. That was truly, really disappointing. I don't know, it was just really sad. I don't know what went wrong. I think, as I said before, he was really nervous coming into this match, but I don't know, it was just completely off. He didn't play the way he wanted to play. And the second set for Draper, it just slipped away from him really fast. And the deciding set, I mean, there was like a VAR drama, and there was a VAR drama, and they were finding their forms sort of a little bit, but then at the end, the VAR sort of disrupted them, and it really didn't help. So yeah, it was just a really sad thing, I think, for me to see. I mean, for Carlos, he also didn't do well in Miami. He was out in round 2 against David Goffin. I mean, I don't think he played as bad in that match, but I will talk about that match later. I just think Carlos really needs to focus on getting results beside Grand Slam wins, because I feel like a lot of players, they get consistent results on the tour level, but every time they play a Grand Slam, sometimes they can't break through it. But I think Carlos is the opposite, because I really do think he performs well at the Grand Slams. Like, he have that many Grand Slam titles, but I think one of the reasons why he isn't ranked world number 2 but world number 3 is because he just don't perform that well in these just Masters tournament. And I don't know, I just feel like he needs consistent and deeper runs here, because just merely picking up the Grand Slam points isn't enough for him to maybe get the number 1 spot that he always wanted it to. So yeah. Okay, now I want to talk about Miami. I mean, I moved past that pretty fast because I just want to say that I feel like the results in Indian Wells often translate to the results in Miami. Historically speaking, people that performed well in Indian Wells also performed relatively well in Miami. However, it's really hard to win both titles because both of these tournaments just take place 2 days after each other, and it's just really hard for let's say Mira Andreeva to win 14 matches or 13 matches in a row. I just think that's really hard for her. So I don't expect her to win, but still, regardless, I think she will make a deep run here. So yeah, let's dive right into the early rounds of this tournament. So for Miami, I want to first start with the women's singles because it happened sooner. So I think 2 days before the men's. So let's just go through round by round, and I just want to highlight some matches. So the first match I want to talk about is the match between Petra Kvitova and Sofia Kenin. This was Petra's, I'm pretty sure, first match back after leaving for a long time. Okay, well, never mind. She played in Indian Wells as well, and she also played in Texas, I think. But I think this was a big challenge for her because Sofia Kenin is a top player, and she lost with a score of 4-6 and 5-7. I feel like this just showed us once again that it's really hard to come back from maternity leave because your body has truly been through so much, and it's just playing tennis is such an intense sport, especially when you're playing in the humidity and in the sun. I think it's really a lot for players, and I think this match just showed how tough it is to come back. And some other round of 128 matches I really want to talk about is, you know what, let's talk about the match between Katie Boulter and Peyton Stearns. I mean, although I feel like Katie hasn't performed how she wanted it to, I feel like she performed the worst than last year, at least up to this point. But for Peyton Stearns to beat her with a score in with that score in 2 straight sets, it's still pretty great considering that it was a pretty convincing win. And I really do hope that one of these big tournaments are going to be one of her breakthrough tournaments, because I really do think she plays good tennis and I love her fighting spirit. So I really do hope she gets a win at one of these bigger tournaments. I think she really deserves a breakthrough. So I mean, that's all. I feel like the draw for the women's side isn't that competitive this year. I mean, for the first round at least. But for the round of 64, we do have quite a few good matches. So I want to talk about Jabeur beating Katerina Siniakova. So this was good. This was great because I feel like Ons just haven't been herself. Obviously, she's have to come back with injuries, and unfortunately, she had to withdraw again today in a round of 32 against Paolini because she injured her leg. But I feel like just seeing these wins by Ons really do make me happy. I'll also leave a link to all of the matches so you guys know what I'm talking about. I also want to talk about Coco Gauff double bageling Sofia Kenin. I feel like her form this year kind of really peaked at the start of the year when she played against that match against Iga Swiatek during the United Cup. And however, I feel like just going into Australian Open, she was my favorite to win the tournament. However, she didn't perform as well as I would have wanted her to. I feel like something was just off, and I just feel like her serve is still a work in progress, her forehand as well, and sometimes it's just like a routine for her to dump these serves into the net or just to miss a forehand really short. And I feel like she performed really well in the United Cup, and I thought all of these issues were fixed. But that just shows how hard it is to fix an issue like this, because despite performing well in one match, it doesn't mean that the next match coming up you'll perform just as well. It doesn't mean that the thing you fix will just completely be fixed completely, if that makes sense. Like, I still think that even though she did display some good form, it's still like a process. She has to go through a process to fix her form. So yeah. Okay, and then I want to talk about, I want to talk about Ashlyn Krueger beating Elena Rybakina. This was kind of unexpected because even though Rybakina didn't perform well in Indian Wells for her last match, she lost 1-6, 2-6 to Andreeva. I'm not taking anything away from Ashlyn Krueger. She just beat Leila Fernandez in round of 32, and she will be playing a round of 16 on Monday. So she's doing really well, actually. But for Rybakina to lose in round 2 is just kind of unexpected to me, because I really do think when she's on, and I'm just scared that because of how sort of poorly she played in Indian Wells, that it's going to carry on with her for the other tournaments. But I really do hope that that's not the case. And let's see, other matches in the round of 64. Oh yeah, I want to talk about the match between Emma Raducanu and Emma Navarro. I just think this was interesting. I think Emma Raducanu is able to have these good performances against players that, I mean, you could say that they aren't in their best form. But when she faces a player who's playing lights out, just like when she faced against Iga in Australia this year, she really struggles to keep up. And I don't know if I want to see her make a deep run. I mean, obviously I do, but I just think it's really hard for her to make a deep run here. And obviously after what happened in Dubai, I really hope she comes back from it. And her next opponent will be Kessler from the US, which will be an interesting match. I think the crowd will love that match. But apart from that, I think it's just really interesting because I'm not sure how far Emma could go, because as more she advances into a tournament, there's a higher chance that she's going to face someone that's playing at their top level. And I don't know what Emma's top level is, so I don't know how she will match up to them. Like, especially, well, okay, I want to rephrase that. I think I do know what Emma's top level is, but we haven't seen her play like how she played when she won that Grand Slam title. So I don't know. I think I'm really curious to see. Let's put her against Coco Gauff again. Let's put her against Sabalenka again. Let's put her against Iga again. I really want to see how she matches up to them, even maybe Andreeva. I just want to know how she plays against them. But yeah, and today we have some matches. Currently, Coco Gauff is playing Maria Sakkari, and she won the first set 6-2 in the round of 32. Sabalenka also got through the round of 32 after beating Elena Gabriela Ruse in the first set 6-1, and then Ruse actually retired. Naomi Osaka is battling against Hailey Baptiste, and they're playing a third deciding set, and she's currently up 2-1, and Hailey is currently serving, so let's see what will happen. But I think that's all for the women's side. I'll make sure to link every single match down there. And now let's move on to the men's. We'll take a little break. Okay, welcome back. We'll start talking about the men's side. I mean, the men's is still currently playing the round of 64, so this segment will be a little bit shorter, but let's just start with the round of 128. So for the first round, we do have some pretty interesting matches, and I think the one that really stood out to me is obviously Lerner Tien versus Joao Fonseca. I think that's the match that everyone looked forward to, and I watched the first two sets, and I think both of these players played good, but I don't think they played good at the same time. I feel like, well, in a match, there's bound to be moments where one player peaks and a moment where the other player peaks. But unfortunately, I think in this match, both of these players played good at different times. I think during the tiebreak in the first, that tiebreak just slipped away so fast for Fonseca. And the second set, Fonseca turned on and won the second set. But the third set, also, I watched the highlights later, wasn't as exciting as I thought it was. I feel like Fonseca is proving to us again and again that he is able to win a match when he isn't playing at his top level, like how he played against Andrei Rublev in Australia. That was just complete power, but I don't think this was the case this time. I think Fonseca really had to scrape and just go dig deep, and he ultimately came out victorious on top. So I'll leave a highlight because I think it's a match that a lot of people really want to watch. Okay, now I want to talk about round of 64 matches. So David Goffin beating Carlos Alcaraz 5-7, 6-4, 6-3. Okay, so I think this was really interesting because I like the way Carlos performed. I thought that it was just a one-time thing. Obviously, this performance was much better against how he played against Jack Draper, especially the first set against Jack Draper. But I just thought it wasn't like this is not how he wanted to end off his, let's just say, the Miami and Indian Wells swing. I feel like he really wanted a title here and just get a title. Even though he didn't get the Indian Wells title, I think he had a chance winning here. And granted, the condition maybe isn't as suitable for him because the courts are slower. I still think he should at least maybe make it to the semifinals. And yeah, this was just unexpected. I watched the highlights too. I think Goffin played great, but Carlos just missed a lot of balls that I think he wouldn't normally miss. But on the other hand, I think Djokovic is playing really good. He hasn't played Miami in a long time. He passed through his first round opponent, which is Hijikata. He bageled him. I think the score was 6-0, and the tiebreak score was like, let's see, I think the tiebreak score was 7. Yeah, the tiebreak score was 7-1. So it was just a really one-sided match, especially the first set. I feel like he was able to really use the conditions of the court to his advantage. Like he's able to change the directions of the ball pretty easily, and I don't think, obviously he doesn't like to play in the humidity and he doesn't like to play in heat, but I really don't think that affected him that much. I think he played great. So yeah, and as for other round of 64 matches, I also want to talk about Medvedev losing. I just feel like Medvedev is having a lot of trouble. hitting winners. I don't know what went wrong, but he can't seem to finish a point. The only, I feel like, way he's able to finish a point is relying on his opponent's misses and going to the net. And when he rallied with his opponent, like, I feel like that match against Holger Rune was hitting the ball so easily back. Medvedev was like grunting and hitting the ball like his whole life depended on it. He was just, I feel like his power just, I don't know how it matches up against the other players, because from just looking at the highlights, it looked like he was just hitting the daylight out of the ball. And Holger Rune, like in Indian Wells, was just hitting the ball back, rallying, and just changing up the pace. And that was enough to beat Medvedev. And I mean, Munar beat Medvedev pretty easily. So yeah, I'll give you guys a highlight for you guys to check it out yourselves. And for other round of 64 matches, I want to talk about Coleman Wong beating Ben Shelton. This was unexpected, and the last set was a tiebreak. I think Wong played great. I think especially in a tiebreak, it takes a lot to beat a player from the US in Miami with such a tight scoreline, especially because he hasn't experienced moments like that before. And yeah, I think he really do have a chance of going far. His next round opponent is Adam Walton, who came from qualifying. So I think this will be a relatively easy match for Wong if he performed the way he performed. I mean, in Indian Wells, he didn't even make it through the first round of qualifying. So, I mean, I guess this just shows again that tennis can be random, like really random. You can literally lose the first round of qualifying and the next week just beat Ben Shelton, one of the best servers on the tour. So yeah, and I also want to talk about let's talk about Jack Draper. He's currently playing a match against Mensik. I think he's going to come through. He's currently down 4-5, but he's serving and he's up 40-15. I think, as I said before, a lot of players who perform well in Indian Wells really do well in Miami, and I really do hope he does well. I don't think he's going to make it to the title. However, if you really look at it, there's no like player except for maybe Zverev, but he's not really in a good form now. Djokovic also isn't even in a good form. Fred's the same thing. I don't know who is going to win this title. Carlos Alcaraz is out. Daniil Medvedev is out. So it's just really interesting. But I really do think players like Rune, Fonseca, maybe I'll even put him in here, Tsitsipas, have a chance. So does Jack Draper, who I think maybe is in the best form out of everyone here on tour. So yeah, I'm really excited to see him go far. But I think that's all for today's episode. I mean, Naomi Osaka is currently battling. She's down 2-4 in the deciding set. I really do hope she comes back. But yeah, I think that's all for today's episode. And if you haven't subscribed to my social medias, please make sure to subscribe. On YouTube, it's at Tennis Traverse, and that is at Tennis Traverse. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter using at Tennis Traverse. That is at Tennis Traverse. If you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And I think next week we'll talk more about just the aftermath of Miami Open and what the two Miami and Indian Wells brought us. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!